Hi guys, hope everyone has had a good day or good weekend or whenever you're watching the video. Today we're going to talk about multi-step equations. More or less, though, these are two steps with some special things going on. We're going to review the solving of the equations, and then I'm going to basically show you how to deal with some fractions in equations. The fractions tends to be one of the F words of algebra. So just as a recap from last year, when you're solving equations, we want to get rid of parentheses first. If we can, we want to combine like terms, if there's any to do, and then undo addition and subtraction and undo any multiplication and division. Well, these rules are kind of loosey-goosey. They help with when you're dealing with things with fractions, if you remember these rules. So this first example is just a real simple two-step equation. All I'm going to do to solve is I'm going to subtract 4 from both sides, and it's going to give me 3m equals negative 15. If I divide by 3, that's going to give me m equals negative 5. Okay. Now I wanted to remind you that you can actually check to see if you're right by replacing our variable with what we think is the solution. So we're going to put negative 5 in for m. And then we're going to simplify. So 3 times negative 5 is negative 15, and we're going to add 4. And then negative 15 plus 4 is negative 11, so we know we're right. And that is our solution. In this example, we're dividing that whole expression c plus 1 by negative 3. And to undo division, we got to multiply first. So I'm going to think of this, by the way, as a grouping symbol, not necessarily multiplication and division. So we're going to handle it by multiplying by negative 3 first. Okay, if I multiply by negative 3 first, it's going to get rid of this fraction, and I'm going to get c plus 1 equals negative, or positive, sorry, 63. Okay. And then I'm going to subtract 1, and I'm going to get c equal to 62. Okay. And I can again check that by just plugging it in. 62 plus 1 divided by negative 3, and we want it to equal negative 21. So 62 plus 1 is a positive 63 divided by negative 3. So negative 21 equals negative 21. So we've checked that and it works. Okay. Again, a simpler multi-step. We're going to add 8 to both sides. And when I do that, I get 3 halves. A equals 19. From here, I'm going to show you 2 different ways that you can solve this. I can first multiply by the reciprocal, and if I do that, I'm going to multiply by 2/3. And if I multiply by 2/3, remember I can write 19 as 19 over 1, and then I can either reduce, if there's any reducing to do, but there's not, so I just multiply across. 19 times 2 is 38. And then 1 times 3 is 3. So our answer is 38/3. The other way that we can do this, if you still aren't comfortable with fractions, is that we can take this as 2 steps. The first thing that I can do is I can multiply both sides by 2. And when that happens, my 2's cancel, and I'm left with 3a equals 38. And then I can just divide both sides by 3, so a equals 38/3. So you decide whichever way you're comfortable dealing with that. I would really love you to get comfortable with fractions, though. Okay. Now, if you're really comfortable with fractions, you can just subtract 1/2 from both sides. You can multiply by the reciprocal. I'm not worried about those of you that are comfortable with fractions. It's those of you that are uncomfortable with, I want to show you how to deal with those. So what you can do is we can multiply everything by the LCD. So the least common denominator, and if in this case it's 4, but remember you just want to look at multiples. So the multiples of 2 are 2, 4, 6, 8. The multiple of 4 are 4, 8, 12. Well, here's my lowest multiple they have in common is 4. So what I can do is I can multiply everything in this equation by 4. Okay, so if I multiply everything in this equation by 4, or 4 over 1, I'm going to get rid of the fractions. So 2 goes into 4 twice, and 2 times -5 is 10, -10. Okay. 4 goes into 4, it just cancels out, so that leaves me with 3z. Okay, and then 2 goes into 4 twice, so that leaves me with 2. So now it's a two-step equation where I can just subtract 2 from both sides. And when I do that, I'm going to get -12 equals 3z. I'm going to divide by 3, and z is going to equal -4. Now, the other thing I can do is I can take this equation and I can write it every fraction in terms of fourth. So I can make equivalent fractions. So everything is going to have a denominator of 4. Remember that if I multiply the bottom by 2 to give me 4, I've got to multiply the top, which is -10 then. 3/4 is the same, and again I multiplied the last fraction bottom by 2 to give me 4, so I multiply the top by 2. So that is going to give me, now that I have all the bottoms the same, I can just solve the top. And that's just like my other equation. I'm going to subtract 2, and I get -12 equals 3z. Divide by 3, z is going to equal -4. So that is my answer either way that I solve it. Okay. Last example, bigger fractions, right? But the LCD is simple to find if you know your multiples. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. I'm going to go all the way up to 45. Okay. 9 is 9, 18, 27, 36, 45. Okay, so far the smallest thing they have in common. 15, 30, 45. So 45 is my lowest common denominator. So I can multiply everything by 45. Make that 9 a little better. Okay, and when I do that, 5 goes into 45 9 times, so that becomes -9. 9 goes into 45 5 times, so 5 times 4 is 20a. And 15 goes into 45 3 times, so that's going to give me 6. And now I can just solve this equation. I'm going to add 9 to both sides, and I'm going to get -20a equals 15. If I divide by -20, a is going to give me b, -3/4. We're not going to change the decimals. We're going to leave it as the simplest fraction in simplest form. Okay. Again, if I want to change, I can change everything to equivalent fractions. And that equivalent fraction is going to be 45s. In the first fraction, I multiply 5 times 9 to get 45, so the top becomes -9. In the second, I multiply by 5 to give me 45, so that's 20. And the bottom, I multiply by 3, so that's 6. And then I just solve the tops. So I get 9 minus 20a equals 6, which was the same equation we have over here. So our answer is going to be a equals -3/4, no matter how I solve it, which is how it should be, right? All right, so today we took a look at solving equations. Just a quick little recap of steps that you should follow. Remember, they're kind of loose, and we're going to think of things like this as grouping symbols, right? We would just multiply by 4 to get rid of that grouping symbol. And hopefully I showed you some ideas to help you deal with fractions. So have a math-tastic day.